Everybody. I'm Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the PRC meeting for Bergenfield Trash. Your lead reviewer is Saquon Gatling, and the purpose of this meeting is for us to go over any of the comments that you received last week. Saquon will highlight any of the major issues and then turn it over to the applicant. And this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Go ahead, Saquon.
Good morning, everyone. So just to recap some of the major comments, I'll start with fire and rescue. There was some comments to clarify or correct drawings to meet their requirements. It's detailed in the plans. DPS had a number of comments also. I think one of the more major ones is the driveway to the north of the property potentially being consolidated there for access internally. There were also comments from planning, environmental comments focused on tree preservation related to building placement and just general paved areas, and also stormwater management concerns. As for planning transportation, we requested a circulation diagram and truck turning templates. Also, consider consolidating some of the number of curb cuts due to the proximity to adjacent streets. We also wanted more information regarding justification regarding parking and loading spaces, and just some details to confirm on the interim cross section. In general, we also had questions regarding phasing, just to clear up the plan to show what's going in and when, phase 1 versus phase 2. There are also some concerns on the site regarding the steep slopes at the south and the proposed construction of the wall. So just some details there regarding where it is and making sure that it's stable and acceptable for all the uses. And in general, there were some clarifying questions in this SOJ related to the request for APF phasing and the alternate method of compliance. With that, I will turn it over to you guys for any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. We were focused on some of the issues you brought up as well, but I thought you just start and dive into what we can kind of get addressed today, and then certainly we can follow up. The first one on stormwater management. I guess I'll just go with the lead, is that we actually are no longer seeking a stormwater management waiver, so we're able to meet it on site. Is anything else you guys want to?
No, that was just, as you can see, it's very tight, with the nature of the development. But yes, we were able to work it out. That was coming from DPS too, so we're not seeking a waiver.
So quantity and quality on site, and it's not being addressed today, so it's a big improvement. But I think that probably impacts some of the other comments in terms of our inability to do it on site. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we're not able to provide the pervious pavers. I don't know if that's really a relevant point, now that we're meeting on site, but just because of the nature of the use and kind of the grading out there, we're not able to do that. On tree canopy cover, we actually do meet that on site. So the recommendation of the sector plan is between 10 to 15%, and we're at about 13.5% at this point.
To clarify that there's a difference between the canopy you have to provide in the parking lot areas and the canopy that you have to provide overall. So
what we had seen in the master plan was that there's a 10 to 20% coverage requirement. Is that the one you're referring to? Okay.
Yeah, so we calculated, so we did, the typical parking lot calculation of you take the paved area, make sure that's shaded, and then we looked at the entire site area, and 13.5% of the whole site area is under canopy.
So, but would you make sure to put what is required for the parking lot in one column, I guess, for yourself, and then you put the other one for the overall? Thank you.
So on surface parking, there was a comment as to whether we could reduce the number of parking spaces, and it actually is the minimum necessary that we can do out there. But again, because we are complying with stormwater management and tree canopy coverage requirements, I don't think we don't need to reduce it to be able to comply with those. But just to give you a sense, I don't know if you want to talk about the adjacent property, just.
Sure, yeah. We also manage the adjacent industrial park, which is buildings dating back to the 60s up through the 80s. That's parked at a 2.05 per thousand. So, about 33% more than what we're attempting to do for the industrial portion of this as part of the plan. And what we understand from our managers and our brokers is that that's actually a constraining factor in which particular industrial users you're able to bring to that adjacent property. It's a delicate balancing act of different demand levels for those different ones. So doing less than that here is already kind of pushing the envelope of what's acceptable.
If you could incorporate some of those details about that history there, that would be helpful for our viewers to look at that and just verify that you absolutely need those parking spaces. And
Comment number 45, there was a comment in terms of installing planting buffers and continuous tree canopy, and we do comply with that, so we'll just denote that.
I think there might have been a version of the landscape plan where the trees along Brookville were frozen accidentally. So if it didn't make its way in, we have that plan.
Would you mind to have the landscape face on the face so we
Yeah.
can see what would you put in phase 1 and phase 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so next comment was comment number 47, where it talks about where feasible, provide ESD features within the right of way, and maybe just turn it to you guys.
Yeah, there's just, like a lot of right of way situations, it's very constrained. There's water and sewer in Brookville Road, and then storm lines like right behind the curb. And then with the trees and everything, there's just not much room left in that little buffer. I also kind of wonder if Rebecca and Sam able to comment on this as well, but we theoretically, could you get like a 3-foot wide planter in there? Maybe, but I'm not even sure that they would want those sort of cellular features in a road like this where you have so much bus traffic coming up and down here, industrial traffic. I don't know, but we have very little room between the curb and the bike path to fit anything in there because of the utilities and the trees and everything like that. So it's not typically something we can squeeze in there unless it's like a planter.
In fact, do you know what section we asked for on the frontage?
I mean, we have a cross section in the plans if you want to bring it. I think it's a 8-foot buffer. Well, when you account for the storm drain that's running right behind the curb, because the sewer is, not far off that and the water's not far off that. That where that tree is on the left, let's say, I think that's our side. You probably end up having like 3 feet of space and that would put your planter pretty close to your storm drain. About like 5 feet of separation, like I think you want to have. And also the problem with it,
Planter box or?
you have to do it as a concrete box essentially.
What I'm saying is, does it have a depth to it or it's covered? Like,
Oh, no, it had to have a depth, they had that ponding in there.
yeah, I mean, we have some requirements, so. I'm sure you're aware.
Oh, yeah, I've seen them. Yeah, it's. There's kind of things you can sometimes physically make work, but then like, when you can't put street trees in those things, so you have to, you have to interrupt them and. So typically with this kind of environment, we're not able to fit those in there unless there's a, desire by DOT to have them, I guess. You put something very, very small in there.
You have to see the details and all that before.
We can have a follow-up discussion on. Maybe we can draw a section where the utilities are there to help you see that. Sure, I think that would help.
Comment was relating to the public open space, and we just wanted to take the moment just to show you what we're talking about.
If you put the rendering by any chance, I think it's in the supporting drawings. That's admittedly, these drawings are pretty busy because there's so much grade and utilities and the towers and the wires, But if you pull up the rendering, that's actually a good picture for this discussion as well as maybe some others.
So I think there was a question as to kind of providing additional detail on our alternative compliance request. And so from a quantity perspective, we comply. So it's about, it's a 10% requirement. We're providing about 13.5%. It's about 57,000 square feet. The issue that we wanted to talk to you about is kind of the nature of the use and what we're able to put within that space. And so Pat and Kyle, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, as you can imagine, the site's about 10 acres, so it's, 10%, it's a big number, right? And those 2 buildings that are on the north side of the site, the 2 self-storage buildings, are more than half the density, and we probably have one employee. So, and it's an amenity open space, which is intended to be for the employees of the building. So, that in itself creates a unique scenario. But then with the towers and the wires and the buildings, and we'll probably get more into a little bit about how these buildings function, but those buildings have 20-foot floor to floor, 22 feet floor to floor. 21, yeah. There's 21 feet floor to floor to get these high ceilings for the industrial nature of it. So there's a lot of grade happening everywhere. So, we're not, with the nature of the development, what it is, the topography, all of this stuff, the towers, you can't really build in a 1 acre contiguous space. So it's really just has to be broken up. And I think we can activate some of those green areas you see around what we call IF1 and IF2. The self-storage again is going to have, an employee probably. If they end up not being sister buildings, maybe there'd be two because there'd be two offices, but there's a likely scenario where it's just, one building has an office, the other one is just utilizes that office. So in the green areas you see on the screen, particularly on the area that faces Brookville Road, I think we could probably program in some seating areas, break areas, picnic benches, something like that. But there's just not a lot of room on the site to provide any kind of real, large programmed space. And, again, given the nature of the uses, I don't think it's as vital as some other scenarios where you may have more. It's not an office park, for example.
Hearing that makes sense. I think we were missing some of that detail in the text and also in the plan. So if you could provide an exhibit showing where proposed open space could be, and also some of those factors you have to work around, like the wires or where fences may be, we can better assess the request then and get back to you on.
So typically in the past, though, when you haven't been able to provide that on site, we've requested the fee in lieu, not alternative compliance. So we want to be consistent with what we've done in the past.
We've run into this issue from time to time with auto dealers, same kind of thing. Right, because they need all the space they can get for their vehicle storage, and they don't have many employees. And in my experience, at least, we've been able to provide the space, which we are providing here. We're just not programming it exactly per the standards of the division 6.3.
So are you saying you're providing the exact percentage you need? It's just not being designed and amenitized in the way? Or you're providing less than what's
So we're
required?
providing the amounts. We're just not providing it all contiguous. Not all of it's 15 feet wide. Not all of it has seating. Some of it does, some of it doesn't. All that's landscaped. Certainly, it's pretty much all the green areas you see on the screen.
About 50, when they were calculating, it's about 57,000 square feet, which is about 13.5% of the entire site, and 10% is required.
I think the problem that we were having was that there wasn't actually an exhibit showing any of this. And so I still don't know if, we just want to be consistent with what we've done in the past, because at least in Down County, when we've had sites that could actually provide space that could be considered public open space, and here would be amenity space, we wouldn't actually want that space. So we made them provide what we thought would be appropriate and then pay the fee in lieu for the remaining. So I think the same could be said here for the site. So we're just trying to figure out consistently what we've done in the past, what you're trying to do, and then move forward. So maybe if you guys provide the exhibit, we can see. Yeah.
The option space where you're already tight on space in different areas, but we'll take a look.
All right, and then the last thing we wanted to talk about was just access. Are you able to, Kyle, pull Google Maps? Are we able to? Or
We're not plugged in, but you can either plug in, or you guys can bring up Google Street View.
You can also join the
Yes.
meeting and share.
So just as they're doing that, the question was, in terms of the access points. When we first met with staff, we had kind of the whole group sitting around the table, and actually it was staff who actually had suggested that we have 2 points of access to disperse the truck and vehicle traffic into the site, so that everything wasn't condensed from one access point. So that's really where we started, and we kind of investigated and determined that it actually makes sense, but also is pretty critical in terms of circulation on the site. So we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what is adjacent to us and some ideas we had. So
I think also one thing was just to clarify the grade change between the front of the north side of that industrial building and the south side of that industrial building. So as Pat said, 20 to 22 foot And it's two separate levels. So you, on the north side is ground level with the top floor, and the south side of the building is ground level with the bottom floor. So there's 22 feet of grade change essentially between, right, at the access above and the access below. So moving like that driveway can't really be shifted at all, still make up that grade differential is.
Yes.
So I have first of all, I wasn't at that meeting with DOT, and so I have a problem. I thought you were showing 3 access points.
It's actually two. The one
Talk about that
furthest to the
north one.
north
Yeah.
is, we need to graphically clean that up admittedly. So there's a shed. Let me go back. Oh, there's a shed that houses the utility, some of the utility components for the towers. There's gonna be a generator in there. The companies that own those towers just need to access that shed for like a pickup truck. So I think we can make that more of like a mountable curb, not really an apron. It's not really a curb cut, just as long as they can, once a year, get a pickup truck over there.
Okay.
So it really would just be 2 curb cuts to access the majority of the site.
So the problem I have with that other access point is it's too close to the intersection, and we have a I would assume there's heavy movements out of that access point. And so I know you can't come off the driveway. So I think it needs to be moved.
So
Between
Yeah.
5 to 10 buses vehicles per day.
That driveway?
Yep.
Yeah. So you need to move that access point.
Wanted to walk through a little bit.
You're right. The good news is we don't have any, this is a dead end road, so there's no need for anybody to ever leave our site, go right. So we can always, if we need to add stall signage to say left turns only out, that's perfectly fine. But if you look here on the street view, what you can see is that the way this site has operated for a very long time is that all of the incoming, because big bus depot, I guess, all their traffic seems to funnel in right. And it's one way down to the right there.
Mhm.
So, anybody leaving this site is coming straight from the stop controlled intersection where you see the pumping, the gas pumping. So I think that the main concern would be if people are would be turning left here towards us in the view. Do you have a conflict with the cars leaving left from the site?
Mhm.
That scenario is not really happening given the way that site operates to the south of us.
So it's a one-way.
It's counterclockwise around that
Yeah.
bus
The
facility.
bus must turn
If you
right.
go overhead, you can see the arrows on the
Yeah.
road. You go overhead,
So
yes,
did you
it's,
provide anything in writing of why, for the reduction of,
We didn't submit a formal design exception, but we owe that to you. The other thing we could look at, and this would be a question for DOT, is, we're doing some ped improvements in this area. That tree line you see on the right is all gonna be cleared out of there because we're gonna provide a sidewalk that connects to that bus stop. We could look at maybe making that radius a little bit smaller to increase the distance. I don't know, the bus traffic that goes in there is pretty frequent, so I don't know if they
yeah,
want or need that, but yeah, that was kind of our thinking is that, luckily we have only people leaving left out of our site, and then the vast majority of traffic leaving this site is coming straight towards us, not turning.
that's right.
And that's gate controlled as well, that where that crosswalk you see here, there's actually a gate there that's closed, except for when I guess that bus is going in there, so.
Okay.
We could put that all in writing if that would help.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to, for the design section.
Yeah.
Anything I was gonna say, Captain, so Dax, what has apron of it fall with next door neighbor?
So you're talking about the one that,
Yeah, that one, so you're talking about the flare going past the property line, yeah, we'll clean that up with it, and again, that's really just intended to be. Frankly, you can do without a curb cut, the truck could hop over a curb, but we're trying to provide them some sort of stable path for maintenance access to that shed, but it's not, the only people that would use that would be the company that needs to get to that generator building, and if we had to, I guess even if we had to put
mountable or 3 and
mountable curb or removable bollards or something to discourage its use, I'm sure we could do something like that to make it, as informal as possible.
Oh, that's fine, but as long as you clean it up, so
Yeah, we won't have the flare that goes with it.
That's really all we had.
I think we had one more comment, at least for the environment.
Yes. Can you pull out the forest conservation plan, please? I think so the high priority forest is not being identified in the plan, and the section that it's steep slopes, high bowl at all edible soils and the forest, those are considered high priority for retention. So I think so you may have to modify the SOJ and the forest conservation tables because that section area is not being put on the tables. So we need those numbers, and the variance at this moment cannot be considered until you play around that area. So all the southeast section in the dotted area, that is considered high priority forest and retention. So you have to, so all this section here. So you have to do some work to address that concern.
So when you say high priority, is that solely because of the steep slope, or is that?
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, based on the forest conservation law, section 12, steep slopes are considered a high priority retention areas. And you have forest too, high priority forest.
Those overlapping things that make it concerning.
Section 12B1, you have to address A, B, C, and then we can consider your variance.
You're saying that, well, the variance wouldn't be for the forest, it'd just be for the individual trees, right?
That's correct, but you have to show effort that you are trying to save some of the trees without that, consider that area. Does that make sense? So first you will have to address the trees outside of that area, and then we can play with the high priority.
When you say address the trees outside that area, can you be more specific about?
Yes, yeah, so you do have a specimen and significant trees outside of the high priority forest area. So those we can be a little bit more flexible, but then you have to see what you can do. For example, some of the recommendations that we provide is, it seems like some of the parking spot might be too much spots, so maybe you can reduce that based on the table that you provide here. So maybe there's some mistakes in the tables, but it was what we perceived. So if you can reduce parking spots, maybe you can save some of the trees in the south east corner.
King side, that will be kind of our balance because we already are at the minimum, so that we don't have much flexibility. But Pat, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Well, yeah, we glossed over this at the beginning, but the parking needs, actually the rendering, I don't know if you can pull that back up, but you can see, the parking actually for this type of use. Well, forget the self-storage, because that's kind of what it is. There's really not that much parking there for that much flex industrial. And I think as Jad or Stacy might have mentioned, they manage the sites next door, which are exactly the same thing. And we can see there's just cars parked everywhere. So code wise, we're pretty close to we're not very much over the minimum, but market wise, I think we're pretty low.
Yeah, there's only one, there's one industrial parking rate in the county code, but there's a ton of different types of industrial, right? Active industrial versus like very passive industrial. An industrial park, we looked at, like, ITE publishes parking generation rates. And if you look at the densities out here for the warehouse and the industrial, for industrial park, we're at like 390 spaces of 85th percentile demand, peak demand. So, which is more than we're actually providing. So I think, as Jad said too, we're confident that we'll use every one of those parking spaces, and they'll be critical for actually getting tenants, because tenants are going to need each of those spaces for their individual bays. Because remember, these aren't just one large, it's not gonna be like one big company in one building. It's gonna be like, what, like 10, 15 like groups
Yeah.
potentially in each building, and they'll each need like 5 spaces, 10 spaces, right?
And we anticipate it'll be very multi-tenanted, just like the properties we manage next door are. And that's also why you see as many loading docks and as many rolled in loading bays as you do. So.
And you can see on the left there, even if you could make the parking work somehow, you just, and you can't see the grades here, but there's so much grade on the site that, you just have to really grade almost to the property line everywhere you go here, which unfortunately means tree removal. I think the good news is that, if I remember correctly, there's different, factors that weigh into sort of high priority forest, and, there are steep slopes there, but, if you go left on the page here, to what the development that Jad was talking, they manage, there's no forest there. So there's nothing contiguous with this. There's nothing to the south. You have to skip over that property before you get to the park's property where there's the big contiguous forest. So, the good news is I think yes, it checks one box in terms of high priority with the slopes, but you know,
And vertical slopes as well, yeah.
yeah, but
And then forwards.
so, but those will be going away because we, you know, put in a parking lot and a wall and, you know, regrading. So,
You would have to show, you have to address those items in your specification.
yeah, we can address that and look, and also maybe better explain the nature of the grades and how, you know, everything is sloping to a certain point to get the, because all of these flex buildings, like it's been said a couple of times, have like, you know, 20 feet of grade between each one of them. So on that left side of the page, south side of the page, you really have to shove all that way down to get enough grade differential where you can have the stuff on the top. And not the least of which constraint wise is those wires and the towers that we're having to preserve the tower in place. So the grades are always set by those factors, but we can better explain that. Maybe an exhibit would help that. There might have been mention of a cross section that might help that as well.
So what I'm trying to say is, at this moment, the significant specimen trees that are in this retention area, high priority retention area, likely we will not support the variance for. I'm trying to say.
Wouldn't, we can get into the details, but I think that would create a hardship that we couldn't get around.
So what we need is that you show some efforts to move things around. Because based on 3 items in the forest conservation law, you have to show that the development would make maximum use of any available planning and zoning options, reasonable effort that have been to protect a specific areas and vegetation, and the development proposal cannot be reasonable or altered. Yeah. But that's what we
So you have to make an argument
very
that you've
strong
done
argument.
those.
Yeah.
So I think in addition to all the details you were saying and those operations for how unique these industrial buildings are, it's not one big building, it's multiple. Everything you said should go into that and show if you can give it, or if you explored it and you can't alter it, and then we can make a better assessment from there.
And we can provide that. I think as kind of, we hear what you're saying, and hopefully you're hearing what we're saying too, is like, it's just even though it's a large site, it's very constrained because of the grades. And we certainly have looked at it in multiple different ways. I think we obviously will need to document exactly what we're talking about, but we'll see what we can do. But I guess we're expressing to you that it's very constrained. Like, we've kind of been looking at it and balancing the grades out there, and I'm not sure we're really gonna be able to save that many more because of how the grades work and the limitations on the parking. But we will obviously continue the conversation.
Yeah, I think so. The tables, they will change based on the high priority areas that they need to be updated in the forest conservation plan. So
Maybe we might have to have another conversation, because I know you guys have looked at kind of the high priority areas.
Yeah, I
as
think
well.
we can have an offline conversation,
Yeah.
but I think we sort of looked at this the way we looked at some other projects that are sort of similar and high priority versus not. There's some debatable nature there, but we can talk about it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for 7406 Piney Branch Road. Your lead reviewer is Grace Bogdan. The purpose of this meeting is to answer any questions you might have based upon the comments you received. Grace will highlight any of the major issues, and then turn it over to you. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Go ahead, Grace.
Good morning. So because this is a concept plan, I just want to quickly go over process.
Yeah.
The process sort of ends at this meeting today. Concept plan essentially is a free ticket for all of the agencies to review the proposal and then receive feedback before determining if you want to move forward with an application. And so all of the comments that you've received sort of through the e-plans, I will compile into a memo that also updates based on any conversations we have today. And then you can decide with your client if you want to move forward towards application. So that being said, based on the proposal, you saw the comments. I think some of the major things that came out of those is that this would require subdivision to create 3 lots for the single family homes, and it could be an administrative subdivision, which basically means that it could be done in a compressed time frame. But one of the major things that we saw in the statement of justification was a sort of proposal for a duplex, which is not allowed currently in the R60 zone. So we just wanted to be clear that the subdivision, if you were to move forward, would be for single family detached homes.
That's fine. The only reason I brought that up is there's new legislation in the city of Tacoma Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for giving tax breaks for getting affordable housing.
I see.
And they are entertaining duplexes.
Gotcha.
Because they doing it for family buildings, but they wanted to allow single family lots with enough room. And I thought, I don't know if all you know this, but Goldie Hawn grew up in a duplex at the end of Cleveland on this street. So there's one that faces, there's a duplex there.
I did not know
And-
that. That's amazing.
So I would turn the historic house to face, there's only one wall that's actually probably salvageable with a nice, beautiful window pattern. That house has not been, it's fallen down. It's a sad story. But anyway, so that was my thought that, well, let's ask because this is a chance to bring it up. And then I actually contacted Ross Grigsby, the planner at City of Tacoma Park. And she said, we are doing that? And I said, yeah, but it's just being done right now as tax incentives. So you may not have heard of it. Then there was a hearing last week. There's another hearing this week about that. So that's why I had seen, reading the code that there was a duplex option by special consideration. So that the context is there, the possibility may be there in the future. It's because I think the city of Tacoma Park would be then notifying you guys and saying, okay, we're going to allow this if that's okay. But I'm happy to keep a single family.
Okay, yeah, based on current regulations, everything else is sort of TBD, but current regulations, it would be for single family only. But then you sort of bring up a couple of the other points I wanted to raise was that this is within the city of Tacoma Park, and so they have their own stormwater management
Yes.
as well as a tree ordinance. So anything in addition,
I live in Tacoma Park.
I'm sure you get it. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, you understand. And then based on the historic structure, our historic preservation staff left a comment as to what their process is and how you'd move forward improving that. So I think those are the major comments. I think one last one was in terms of fire access. And so you show on lot C, the proposed lot C, a shared driveway. And so that would need to meet the requirements for a larger apron. And we're just not sure if that would be appropriate there. So if that wasn't, plus you'd also need an easement from that lot to the north to use that driveway access point. You should, if that's not possible, then you could consider looking at a shared driveway between the 2 lots, between C and B.
State highway won't let that out.
I mean, either way, state highway would have to.
They got a
allow-
2-foot easement somewhere in the past, and they've got that little island out there.
I see, yeah.
And I've applied before on Carroll Avenue for a new state highway driveway entrance, not happening. So we believe there's a slight encroachment at the apron of the house on the north. So that's why I put that driveway in, because that is accessible. There's a huge tree up the hill. But the other, if there was an easement from the top, even if it was just, not even a used driveway, but a surface that like Grasscrete or something that could allow something to get in there, or, you know, but basically there is the driveway that's not used. You see the dash line. That's pathetic, rutted. There's no pavement to that driveway. It's just chunks of asphalt here and there.
Lot B.
The one on the south that comes up to the house. The reason is everyone accesses, well, everyone. There's two houses at the end of the street. This was the first bioretention pervious paving site in Tacoma Park that they did. And they got an easement from Vicky, who lives on the north side there, for a outfall pond from the pervious pavement, like a rain garden. So there's already an easement for the stormwater management at the top that the city has with the agreement with the homeowner. That pervious paving lot, you see there's an out triangle there that goes with the house on the west side here. You see that dash triangle on the private line. So that, there's fire hydrant there. That is a possibility of an easement too, to get a wider frontage. Now, we're not going there because it takes, and that Art passed away and that property's up for sale. So we can't negotiate with the homeowner. But what I'm saying is that fire trucks would not be able to come up that steep driveway on the bottom if it were to become, to get all the way up to the top. If there was a shared driveway from the south existing apron that is wholly on the property, I think that would be the only way we could get the shared driveway in.
Yeah, and I don't think we're concerned about access to the existing residence. That would be off Cleveland Avenue. We're talking about Lot C access.
Right. About fire, you said, right?
So if you were to use that driveway the way you show it now for Lot C.
Yeah.
That is considered a shared driveway with the lot to the north.
Yes.
And that would need to meet the shared driveway requirements, which is a larger apron. So that's when I'm saying you need to look at the fire comments from Marie LeBlanc.
Yeah.
To see if that meets that. And if
So
it doesn't, then it would need to be widened.
Yeah, and that's fine. Again, also State Highway wants to take 13 feet as an easement for the, future expansion, which never.
That's right of way dedication. That's pretty
Was that-
typical. That's right of way dedication. That wouldn't be an easement. That would be dedicated to the state.
Yeah, dedication. So, yeah, it does.
That's the width of the roadway. That's not what she's talking about, the shared driveway.
I
We're talking
understand.
about this way and you're talking about
Yeah,
this way.
We need a larger apron to get into that shared driveway.
Yes, but and Marie, what generally requires 20 feet all the way back until it's not a shared driveway. So she's out on, I don't know if she had any comments. I'll look.
It was not, it was the shared driveway.
I think we can do that. I think that is a hurdle to get this, but at this point, the people that own the property and have to sell it just want to know if there's even a possibility of this going forward. And, my job is to say through this review, yes or no. And now, you give me, I guess, the yes with condition. Right? I mean, that's
Plus an easement for that driveway if you're sharing it with that neighbor. So
right. And
we need to have that.
if we can't get an easement there with a shared driveway, it may be in a longer working with the city, because it's a Cleveland Avenue, this is a city street. And the end of that street could have possibilities to have a turnaround T, because there's no turnaround there. Everybody turns around in each other's parking driveways.
So there's no turnaround at the end of the street.
There's space, but there's no bulbous turnaround. It's just wide enough to T-turn.
So Marie's comments are, she said applicants shall submit a fire department access plan, creating shared access. I will say, I'm not the fire department person, but I will say that you have to provide a proper turnaround that meets fire department access, and a hammerhead does not do that. So that might be a potential, so Marie would be the one to talk to about that.
Right, okay. All right.
And then I think one of the other suggestions we had in the concept plan is, before you submit for the administrative subdivision plan, if your lot design changes and, you've been able to create solutions to some of the things we've
Yeah, I
addressed.
have 4 iterations drawn. I'm ready for
be happy to meet with you again before you submit, just to.
Right,
base.
and I appreciate having this process. It makes it, because my clients can't afford anything, so it's the only way we would have even been able to approach you. Okay. Thanks. Is there anything else?
For the environmental, you would require to have the noise analysis prepared when you come for the next station. Noise analysis.
I didn't understand what you said.
Noise.
Noise analysis.
Oh, noise, yeah.
And also, just make sure that, that you comply with the forest conservation law.
Yes.
That is completely separate from the city of Tacoma Park.
And
Yeah.
that's it, yeah.
And also you have to reach out to the historic department, because some of the trees within the properties or right next to the properties might be considered historic trees.
Yes.
And that's a completely different process that we have.
Yeah, I mentioned there is a historic tree up.
So
along
make sure
the
that
property
they
line.
have a clear layout, if they consider those trees or not.
Right, yeah. Fortunately, that's meadow. Pam turned it into a wildflower meadow. So there's no major trees. There's a grand spruce, which is why you can't see the house. Because in front of that porch, I don't know if you go on Piney Branch, you literally can't see the house because there's this huge spruce tree there. But that too, that's normally, we don't put the, right in front of the front steps because they don't use the front of the house because the house fronts on Piney Branch down there. And everything comes in through the side, where you see that side bump out on the house. So, yeah. Noted.
This is WCC. Good morning. If you are subdividing this, you will need to apply to hydraulic planning analysis, HPA, to WCC. Because you will need extend the 16 sewer line and Fanny Branch Road for Lot B. And that is a requirement before we do a review to that subdivision review.
So that's something that needs to be done before subdivision, is that what you're saying?
You need to apply only. We have to prove that you apply before WCC, the government review to the subdivision process. It's in chapter 50.
Before you will perform your review, you're saying?
Yes.
Get that in writing, correct?
Could you send that, did you put that in E-plans in writing?
No, because we don't do e-plan review for concept plans.
Could you mind putting that in the chat for this?
Okay, so we do.
Why are you doing that? No, it's a habit. I can't.
The voice of God.
Sorry. Anything else?
I'm glad I came in person.
Yes. Yeah.
It was worth it. It was nice to see all of you, meet all of you. I appreciate what you guys do, of course. Yeah, I worked for the big firms, so I never got here. And I'm kind of glad because all their projects, I was the environmental guy. I'm a landscape architect. I was trying to preserve stuff and they didn't care. A little bit different. And I'm trying to preserve stuff here too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorrento, I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Viva White Oak. Your lead reviewer is Emily Tuttlebaum, and the purpose of this meeting is for you to ask any questions based upon the comments you receive. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and I'll have Emily kind of kick us off. Go ahead, Emily.
I'll start off by saying we're really excited about this project. It's going to be so important for the East County. So we're happy that we finally have something in to review and to be working with you all. It's the plan. Okay. And up on the screen so everyone can see it. So thanks for being here with us today. I'll just share a couple kind of the key comments and then you all can ask any questions you have. So one of the themes that I'm sure you all noticed through all of our comments was about the zone prohibiting parking between the building and the streets. So any of the parking or drive aisles between the buildings and the streets really need to be relocated. And we can talk about these comments too at a design meeting that we already have set up for next week. But I'm just going to go through a few of them here quickly. We'd also really like to see a defined main retail street or streets in the mixed use area that's lined with buildings and a well-defined public open space in that mixed use area, and also a more connected street network with the intersections at right angles wherever possible. You probably saw a bunch of comments about the specific intersections and access points at right angles. So those are just some of the key comments. We can discuss most of them, more in depth next week, but we're happy to answer any questions you have.
At least as far as the design comments, I don't think we had any that we needed clarified at this point. We've got the meeting coming up. So I think for at least your design comments, we understand them and look forward to, having that discussion next week. Did anyone else wanted to, we didn't generally, I don't think, have any other questions. Online is Soltez. I don't know if Traffic Group is online.
I'm not sure. They are, I did not hear from them.
Okay, so as I think most folks understand, so the sketch plan, we're hoping to bring in, the preliminary plan amendment has been filed as well for the new road sections. I think we're just waiting on the government, US government, to say it's okay on that submission. So I know Carlos Bonner with MCB has had conversations with General Services about that. I think that was a comment from intake review, though, that we needed that to proceed. So we're working on it. But otherwise, we're hoping at some point the preliminary plan amendment just for the master plan roads is going to be taken basically concurrently with the sketch plan. We're hoping that they catch up. We understand that might mean, and Carlos can kick me if I'm wrong, if he's not happy about this, but that might mean that we don't go with the sketch plan in December. I guess that's a decision we'll need to make.
Yes.
And or we may decide we want to take the sketch plan first and then follow it quickly with the preliminary plan. So we understand that. But just so everyone knows, again, the preliminary plan amendment is just for the public roads. It's not for any of the development lots. It's the same process we proceeded with last time. So some of the comments we think are maybe premature, even if for the preliminary, the ones that are about the preliminary plan, we think are a little bit premature. They're more appropriate for when we go vertical with site plans and future preliminary plan amendments, which we hope to do pretty quickly after.
Like what kind of comments? Like, because, so I was just talking to them, like, in general, the cross sections you show are okay.
Yeah.
But the details of them are what we need to work out with. So like, I'm looking here and you show a traffic signal at one of the intersections. Well, we don't have a warrant study. We can't say that. So that's something that we need all that information. I mean, the more information you give us, the more details we can get into at the preliminary plan for the roads. If, we don't have detail, we can't give you comments. And then at a future date, we might have to change things that we showed at the preliminary plan for the roads.
Right. Was this just for that example, was that a traffic light on the sketch plan?
Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah,
at the picture right there.
I think that was not meant to be definitive.
No.
So like I said, depending on how much information you give me is how definitive. And I would rather keep it a little more vague so that we
We
do
would
have
too.
that ability to change things.
Yeah, we agree 100%, and I think that traffic light was probably a stripe. So we'll clean stuff like that up for the sketch plan, and then when we get more into the preliminary plan, we'll, be able to provide somewhat more level of detail potentially on some things, but some things will need to be left vague because we understand there will be future steps in the process. So very similar to what we did last time, the original set of approvals.
No, and we're so excited, and I'm just back up to be, engaged with you all. Has been great engagement thus far. The comments and feedbacks have only helped us move things faster and better, and thinking about a lot as if CB has stepped into the master developer role. So just want to back up on, thank you for all of the insightful comments. And like Scott has mentioned, some of them, we are focused on the master plan roads, and a lot of the comments are good to receive for the future development, which we are evolving and moving forward. And so we just want to make sure we address the right comments and get the right information in front of you to move the master plan roads and continue to work hand in hand with you on all the other aspects of it. So that's just what we're focused on right now, and not to beleaguer any other points. A couple of just minor questions. We understood for the most part, and we're ready. We will be ready for the charrette that's upcoming, which we know will get more into some of the details there. So I didn't want to just jump around, Scott, but just one question I had was on the adjacency for Resource Center. It's just that comment. We just wanted to make sure what the county was looking for there holistically. And it's comment number 72 from the review questions was the one.
Who made that comment, Carlos?
That would be Aaron.
Yeah, was that about so that was that's something that's in the master plan, that there could be a potential county building there in the future. I don't know currently what the county appetite for the building there is, but just something to think about because it was mentioned for the site.
Appreciate that.
This is Deepak with DOT. I just wanted to mention about the agreement as well, the participation agreement which we have. I know that's in the previous meeting, you guys mentioned that that's probably going to be extended. If that's so, then that has to be reworked as well. Just wanted to put it out there.
We're working with general services if we need to on the participation agreement.
The DGS.
General services, didn't that what I said?
General services is FDA, DGS is the one.
Right, DGS, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah.
They're both general services. GSA versus.
Yeah,
DGS.
but I see them different, like.
Greg and Ronnie, how about that?
Yeah.
Greg and Ronnie. So, if B5, whether that's public or private, it's gonna depend on whether going private triggers a need to redo the road participation agreement, which is problematic. So we'll continue that discussion with, so I appreciate you flagging it. I think that came out in a meeting you had separately about the road sections. Appreciate you flagging it, but we'll continue to work with Greg and Ronnie on that. Do you have anything else?
Then just the questions on the Cherry Hill Lane road section. Wanted to just clarify. It was mentioned that we thought that the county was going to move forward with doing the construction on Cherry Hill. I wasn't sure if that was actually the case or.
Is this specific to the bike lane?
Yes, to the bike lane.
The comment was that there's a bike lane, separated bike lanes on Cherry Hill, and whether the county had funding for that, was proceeding with that separately. I think there was some, we'd heard that, but.
I don't know.
Don't know, okay.
I have not heard it.
My understanding was that this section, the frontage here was not in that budget, but I can follow up.
We appreciate it.
Get back to you on that.
I think we're agnostic. It's really just whether it gets funded
Sure.
of a separate
Yeah,
plot.
let me
If
get
there's,
back to you on that.
yeah. I think we're agnostic. We just want to know.
Yes,
Yeah.
we just want to be clarity on.
So Tika, Soltez, did you have any clarifications or questions that you wanted to ask?
Well, thank you, Scott and Carlos and program planning team and DOT, yeah, for the comments. I think we're pretty clear on the comments and the continuous coordination we've been having in the past. And we will definitely looking forward to the charrette next week. And if there is any meetings that, we need to meet the staff for particular comments, I think we'll reach out to the group separately as we work through these comments. But no big ones so far to discuss on this meeting today. Anything? Okay, I think we're good for today.
Okay. With that,
I have a quick question for Carlos. The prior meeting we had last week, I think it came up that the benefit of our audit that are online, there's gonna be rough grading this summer,
2025,
2025.
yes.
Would that be just for the roads or for the entire site?
The plan is for the entire site. So the roads are required in all of the infrastructure. And so because of the components of the site, be it the topo and how you would need to grade the site, our plan is to grade it all at once as one massive construction project. We are looking at opportunities to, once the road and mass grading are complete, we have some opportunities to build the vertical construction components for some major retailers. So we're having good progressive discussions with 3 particular groups that would allow us to, for essential purposes, potentially complete the vertical construction or start the vertical construction. It just depends on how quickly things go at the same time that we would finish the 3 major roads.
So by then, you think pretty much the site plans are all approved?
I'm sorry, say that.
All pretty much the site plans are approved by then?
Well, for specific vertical components, yes, we would be going in with the site plans that would allow those pieces to be developed.
With the mass grading under the mining permit.
Yes, we're looking at doing it under the mining permit.
Right.
Or
some of the mass grading could be under the mining permit. It might be separate from. Like,
right. Yes.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's good opportunities right now. It's good timing. So we're excited, but we don't want to. I don't want to say, but jinx the opportunity. But things are moving pretty quickly and in a positive manner.
Hey, this is Mark Etheridge with Stormwater. Have you guys talked to MDE about the mass grading being done under that mining permit?
So Jatika, I believe we did. I just want to refer to you.
It's the first time hearing of it, and it seems a little confusing to me. We may want to have an offline discussion and find out make sure we're all on the same page here before we start putting all our ducks in a row for trying to get started so quickly. We would typically need a stormwater concept for a project before we allow a sediment control permit to start, and that stormwater concept could include a rough grading phase. Typically, with a mining permit, that would be for mining operations, and MDE would be doing those inspections under their oil and gas section, which wouldn't be appropriate necessarily for a development rough grading. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page before we get too far. This is the first I've heard of this.
Okay. No, understood, Mark. Yes, the mining permit for the site is open till 2027, but yeah, we can definitely discuss offline and line up any permits required from DPS as well as MDE and the roads.
The mining permit is for the purpose of a mining operation, not for development. So it makes a difference because we need to be able to enter the site to do our inspections under our permit, And under a mining permit, those inspections are not done by DPS. It's a very special kind of permit for mining operations, and it's specific to mining operations. So let's have a discussion as soon as we can offline.
Sounds good.
Yes, we could do that, Barb.
Anyone else?
All
Good.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC Meeting for Democracy Center. Your lead reviewer is Amy Lindsay. And the purpose of this meeting is for you to ask any questions based upon the comments you received. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. I'll ask Amy to kind of highlight any of the major items we should discuss and then turn it over to the applicant. Go ahead, Amy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for submitting these plans. We're really very excited about seeing them come in. I want to acknowledge the infill nature of the project and that we do understand that there's existing development that's going to remain. So this is not a complete redevelopment. This is residential development as infill. And so some of our comments might seem, strange because this is what you're proposing to do, but because the plan, the preliminary plan covers all of the development, whether it's existing or proposed. So I just want to acknowledge that we do understand this. So our top three issues, if I had to sort of lump them together, as first off, we're missing a number of the details that we would need for a site plan and a preliminary plan for that matter. So one of the big ticket items is the roadway cross sections and plans showing the road diet. We talked a lot about that at sketch plan, and that is one of the major benefits to this plan. There's also, details left out on the open space plan. There's a number of the improvements are still listed as, potential. And at site plan, we need to sort of be nailing these things down. One area that we had some sort of specific issues with was the loading area. Previously it was shown as an internal loading dock, and now we sort of have a small sort of area to pull off into. And so we have a number of questions about that and having how that entire corner works from a function as well as sort of a livability. The third sort of issue has to do with sort of the zoning analysis. The tables need to be complete and include the existing development in them, even though you're not proposing to change it. And we understand that. It all still needs to be in the tables. And Melissa also has some things to add to that. Melissa, are you on?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. So I didn't have an opportunity. I can't place the comments into project docs, but I sent an email to Sue who could distribute it to everyone else. The building height measuring point, I'm not sure if you're asking the planning board for an alternate measurement point, but it was not clear to me that it was measured the way the code requires. So you would use the average elevation of finished grade for this building. And then if there's any height encroachments, I would suggest outlining those also in your statement of justification. And then another thing I noticed is that the building sign that is proposed over 26 feet from the grade would need to be approved as a variance by the sign review board unless it's revised. The sign must be at least 10 feet from the corner of the building to meet the code. Thank you.
So as it currently stands, we are on track for a January 16th planning board date. but that will require a resubmit date of October 23rd with the final submission due on the 12th of November. I will just tell you in case in case you haven't already heard this, that E-Plans was down for a couple of days right before comments were due. And so just if things are put in kind of strange places, that might explain it, but we're happy to answer any questions or anything you'd like to discuss.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Amy, for that initial summary. I have Carl Alt with the NRP group joining me. I believe Chanda is in the room with Vika. Is that right?
Yes, I'm here, Sue.
Okay, great. And we've, as a team, we've had a chance to go through preliminarily the comments, and there were quite a bit in terms of transportation, inclusive, you know, the road diet topic. So I think just to be efficient with our time today, we would definitely want to schedule a separate time where we can go more in depth on those issues, Amy. I don't know if it's appropriate to go ahead and schedule this for a follow-up. I get the DRC there's a preset time, right? Next week?
Yes, there is.
A week after DRC. That might be appropriate, or we can find a separate time that works. We do know we do have information. We did do sort of a cross section of Rockledge Drive preliminarily that we had shared with staff during the sketch plan phase to show, you know, how a road diet would sort of lay out along the frontage. So we can go through that again and get that formally, you know, submitted as part of the package. But the timing of the road diet and you know, sort of proportionality, those are all sort of detailed topics that we want to get into separately. The potential aspect of the open space is really was just for labeling, you know, and talking to NRP, what is depicted on the screen as far as the improvements or the amenities, recreational amenities, those are confirmed to the extent that and committed to by the applicant. And as you know, we spent considerable time discussing that with Parks at Henry, and so that hasn't changed. We can just remove the potential language off of the landscape plan. If Carl, did you want to say anything more on that point?
No, I think there was just a bit of a miscommunication or not clear enough direction to Parker Rodriguez. That I'll take ownership of that, and absolutely agree with you, Amy, that at the site plan stage, we're not dealing in potential, it's concrete, and our plans will reflect as such.
Well, and I will also just say that remember, these are the plans that we use when we start preparing cost estimates. So for example, when you're looking at playground equipment, all of that has to be detailed out.
Yeah, understood, and that's just 100% agree. Understand there was on the direction that we had given Parker Rodriguez is how we wanted things called out. Like I said, I'll take ownership for that. I think when you look at the VICA plans, you know, potential is not shown on there, so we'll get that corrected in the next submission and clean that up. Sue, I don't know if we want to continue or address kind of the comments that Amy had made. It sounds particularly with the lay-by and the loading. You know, right now, this is a function of the grades on this site and trying to meet the zoning requirements for internal loading versus what the actual grades on the ground are. And we really struggled with getting the clearances and the access points because of the way that the grade is rising through the back half of the site there. We can continue to look at it. This was a solution, though, that worked to address one of the questions
was, I believe, how does a truck get out of there? It would be through wayfinding and would be no different than how the fire truck is exiting. We have our fire lane with a turnaround at the end of the aisle there. That's how it would be envisioned for larger trucks to be able to maneuver and exit the site. I guess the question I would have is having a lay-by problematic versus interior?
Well, I think, we'd like to discuss that further,
Okay.
to see how this actually would work, because I wasn't clear, are those transformers or trash bins? on
Those
the
are
outside?
those are transformers, yes.
Okay.
And it's transformers that you're showing on this one. Obviously, this is a very fluid process. These transformers are in a little bit of a slightly different location than I think the backgrounds that we have, but yes, those are all transformers for this building, servicing the building. The main electric room is located on that end of the building. So that's what those are. The trash itself is internal. There's internal trash chutes that go to for recycling and for trash that go to a compactor that then gets moved out to the street on trash days. And the trash truck maneuver would be similar to our moving and our fire trucks with a hammerhead at the end.
Carl,
think
can I,
this is-
can I add to that point too, to maybe just to help clarify, because I think this plan is maybe a little bit challenging to understand to your concern about like how residential loading would function. This plan is showing the level 2 condition. The loading, as Carl noted, because of the grading, actually happens at level 1 below. So when a truck pulls into that lay-by loading zone, we have a corridor right by that lay-by loading zone, that takes you directly into the building and right by an elevator. The function for the ease of loading for residents is definitely a concern, for NRP to make sure that's a, successful way of handling loading for our residents.
Okay. Amy, did you have anything further on the loading?
No,
Or
just
you
that,
gonna
that
consider?
we needed to understand that better, to understand the sort of the function. And I was just pulling up that plan, because it almost looked like you had a residential unit right by it, but
Yeah, this is not a good plan to look at, as Ben
Okay.
mentioned.
Well-
If you go to the architectural plans and you look at the ground floor, because one thing to keep in mind on this building is what I like to call a 5/1.5, essentially. So along the 270 side, we have 2 levels of concrete podium. So the building at that location will appear to be about seven stories high, as well as along the front parking garage. But then as we all know, as the grade rises up, a bulk of the building is slab on grade, and then it's 1 level of podium and then five levels of wood above. So as Ben was just pointing out, off of our, you can see where it says finished floor elevation of 329.67. Exactly, just north of the electric room there. That's a corridor that goes from the loading area directly to an internal elevator. So from a convenience standpoint, this for the move in, move outs works really well. You can see all the different spot grades and how much it's changing back there. That's really was a function of, as we mentioned, getting our finished floors to work out, and also the internal ramping, because you can see the building, it kind of rises up on the nub that is planned south here. That finished floor elevation is 331. So getting from a 328 to 331 requires some internal ramping as well. And that's where our troubles are coming and trying to get everything to work out there.
all right, this definitely makes more sense now. And I think it was, there just wasn't sort of a loading plan included. And so it was just
And we can
look.
make that clearer, Amy, on the next submission for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think maybe a few more labels would probably
Yeah.
help.
Okay.
I think truck turning templates would be helpful, and then if that is gonna be where the loading occurs, I think we'd wanna see wheel stops. But I wanna make sure that the truck turns into that lay-by work, and so, yeah, just some more information at the next submittal would be really helpful.
We can absolutely provide that. I think there was two other issues I know that we really wanted to address. One was, is Dr. Ball on? Is she on the call?
Marie?
Marie?
No, she's deployed.
Okay, she understood. Obviously, we want to get some more clarity on what she's looking for with regards to more detail on the structural analysis that we had done on the parking deck on the fire lane. She had some comments on that, so we'll definitely need to connect with her once she gets home safely to address her concerns with the analysis that our structural engineer did on the existing garage. One thing of note that we were going to point out to her today was that, you know, the area that we're seeing on using this plan that you have on there right now, you can kind of see the edge of the garage, which is just below where it says proposed storm drain. That is the edge of the existing underground garage. So from a fire apparatus standpoint, any of the outriggers would actually all be on native ground. I rarely would see, and I'd be surprised that they would put outriggers on that elevated deck, but we'll work through that with her. And then as Sue had mentioned, the other one of the big things in notes that we really wanted to kind of dive in here was at the entrance. I think both transportation and right-of-way made the comment with regards to the existing entryway and modification of some form of I believe it was a 6-foot wide area of refuse because of the fact that the existing entrance today is greater than 30 feet. I believe it measures roughly about 43 feet. We wanted to kind of get some more talk through that a little bit more. Obviously, it is a little problematic. Our agreement with the seller really is everything to the north of the entrance. There was never any discussions or anything in our purchase agreement that contemplated any kind of modification to that entrance. So meeting that design request is going to be a pretty heavy lift. We'll take a look at it. I know Vika is in the process of sketching up what that kind of pork chop would look like, but given the current geometry, I don't know if it's going to be feasible to have the ingress, egress, and the 6 foot. And so we just wanted to talk through that more, find out, as if we're unable to make that, how problematic that will be. With regards to altering that entrance.
You're already proposing to alter the entrance by doing the work on the north side. The radii that you have, if you can zoom in, it just doesn't, it's too narrow, so you need, or too wide, so you need to narrow the road, you need to narrow it and make it a little bit more so vehicles don't just come really fast into the site, and next thing you know, you have a collision because somebody's coming out of that garage. It's very close to the intersection of the access point. So I think you got a lot of, so you need to really try to figure out how to slow vehicles down when they're coming into the site. And the radii that you propose is too wide to do that. So if you can't do a 6 foot wide pedestrian refuge, then you need to provide some other way of narrowing that roadway or driveway.
So just so I'm clear on understanding, and we'll all talk from the same thing, that we're not modifying that as I understood it, and Chanda and Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no modification to that entryway. It is how it exists today.
We're looking at
what we're seeing on the screen is not new or proposed. That is what the existing, it's leaving that existing entrance as it is today.
Right, so we build to today's standards, and that entrance does not meet our requirements and standards. I believe that Amy mentioned that they are looking at the entire site. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we need to fix, we understand maybe you can't touch the bottom half, but we need to fix the top part of that entrance so that it doesn't feel like a speedway.
Just to clarify, we'll take a look at this issue, but the preliminary plan has to cover the property inclusive of the existing office to the south, but the site plan is limited to just the multifamily project proposed. And the preliminary plan is proposing to obviously subdivide into 2 lots, and and the northern lot is what we're talking about right now. So
this is your primary access. It's the only vehicular access, and we have to find safe and efficient access. That's a finding we have to make. And so I think looking at how this can be designed to provide safe and efficient access for vehicles and pedestrians and bikes is an important component for the site plan as well as the preliminary plan.
yeah, so we'll take a look at it. I just wanted to understand, because the site plan is, on this issue, yes, but just generally, I just want to make it clarified that the site plan is focused on the northern portion of the site, not the entirety.
We do understand that,
Okay.
but there are some things, especially this one, which relates very directly to the entrance for your development. I know I mentioned earlier that the tables need to be complete and include the existing development for the preliminary plan. But we do understand that nothing is proposed there. I did want to bring up, this, and we apologize for not bringing this up at sketch plan, but the issue of future dedication.
Yeah, we
we
saw
did-
that comment
we
too.
saw that
You're
comment.
talking along Fernwood Terrace /
Westlake.
Westlake. We did see that. We did forward the comments on to the seller. Obviously, we're not in any position to grant that dedication. We'll await a response from them. But we are aware of it, and we are having those conversations with them.
Well, that's good. What I'm trying to say is that we understand that the position, so we're trying to be reasonable. We're not asking for the entire property to be brought up to today's standards, but just, the asking for an easement for future dedication helps sort of protect us. It'll enable us to get that dedication in the future. And this is directly tied to your development. And so that's why we feel it is appropriate.
Yeah, understood, heard loud and clear. We'll have to, we'll have Vika work up some sketches here. That's where I think we were mentioning wanting to get the follow-on meeting, because I think this entrance, as well as the road diet and the road sections, and reviewing that with the appropriate parties is important, so that we're all on the same page. So absolutely. I don't know, Chanda, if you actually have those sections that we had done at sketch, if it's worthwhile to actually put those, because I think then the next big topic here is really the road, the frontage improvements. And we'll want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because I feel like most of the comments were aligned, but then there was also maybe a little bit of ambiguity between right of way and transportation. So we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with what the solution is going to be going forward on our frontage.
Absolutely. And we'll be happy to schedule that follow-up meeting for next Tuesday morning in that space that we all have available. Another thing that I kind of want to put on your radar is I do really strongly believe that the success of that active open space will partly depend on the relationship between the open space and your proposed building.
Can we zoom out a little bit, Amy, please? Just so, and maybe it's the landscape plan or this one might be the better one to look at. Because I think it's landscape plays a big part relationally to the park and the building.
Yep, let me go to a different plan.
Well, Amy, while you're doing that, I just wanted to quickly address this building height measuring point issue. Obviously, we need to be clear on that, but the zoning allows for up to 200 feet in height, which we don't come near. And I think in the sketch plan, we indicated 100 foot, not to exceed. And I think we're well below that. So I just wanted to address that because Melissa had brought that up.
Yeah, thanks for addressing that. It does say approximately 100 feet in your statement of justification, but I don't see how you got there. I don't know the measurement that you used and whether or not you're asking for an alternate measuring point or you're using the measuring point as required in the code. That's why I'm asking if you can address that in the submission when you resubmit.
Okay, got it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yep.
So this is the area that we were concerned about, making certain that the transitions between the building to the open space, that someone isn't just walking out the door from a semi-private space into a public space. So there's a little bit of a transition zone. I know we talked about that some at sketch plan. Just to sort of clarify, it will just, I think, make it clearer what's public and what's not public if there's a clear transition.
Absolutely, Amy. So can I address that just real quick, and maybe my explanation here might solve it. And I recognize that what's on the screen might not reflect our conversations or our intent. So we do have a lot of BMPs that are located against the building that will be heavily landscaped. But then the intent is also on the walkout units where we have private yards that there is going to be a fence that is separating the public sidewalk and the public open space from the private yards or the semi-private yards. So there will be essentially a gate to each one of the units that clearly demarks what's semi-private / private and public along that facade. So it'll very much be, I think we use the concept of like townhomes in Capitol Hill as kind of an example of what we would look to mimic here between the building and the park. Does that answer or the level of detail that you're looking for?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think that maybe I just needed to have zoomed in a little closer. That wasn't readily apparent. I know we're basically out of time, but I did just want to remind you that the planning board was very interested in access to bathroom facilities, either in the park or in the building, but just some form of bathroom access.
So we saw that comment, fully expected that comment, and well aware of the desire of the planning board to meet that request. I think that's something we have a couple ideas on that, Amy, that we'd like to speak with you about and how we can maybe come to a mutual resolution on addressing that issue. And obviously, if we could do that, I know we talked about having a follow-up meeting on transportation, but I don't know if it'd be helpful to also have a follow-up meeting with you, or if we just tack that on to the transportation meeting, if you're going to be in the transportation meeting as well.
We'll figure out something. Perhaps we can add 15 minutes on the end of the transportation meeting to talk about some other things.
So on that, you said it would be Tuesday, that would be the 15th?
It is the, yes, the interagency work session, Tuesday, the 15th.
And what time would we be participating?
Well, we all have it on our calendar, so 10 o'clock, would that be acceptable?
Mm-hmm.
That works, yeah.
Yep.
We'll have, Emily will send it out, and I just need to know who else needs to be in it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have Emily work with you.
Apparently it will need to be at a separate time because we already have a follow-up on a different plan at that exact time. But we'll be in touch with you to get it sent out so we can coordinate our internal calendars and get you a time.
Great. We really appreciate that.
Just before we go, I appreciated Amy you providing the resubmission date and the final date. Is there, I mean, the October 23rd is really coming upon us quickly. Is there any flexibility on the resub date? Just wanted to ask.
It's something that we can talk about at our follow-up meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Well, appreciate your time and appreciate your comments, and we look forward to revising and getting this resubmitted.
Wonderful, thank you. We look forward to it.
All right. Thank you all.
I'm Christina Sorrento. I am the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Ruby Senior Homes. Your lead reviewer is Josh Penn. Can you bring up the purpose of this meeting is for you to ask any questions based upon the comments you received. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and I will have Josh kind of kick it off with any items we should discuss and then turn it over to the applicant.
My computer restarted. I'll be with you in just a second. Just pulling up the plan and then I'll share here. Go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Sorry about the delay there. Computer and Wi-Fi are always fun. We are here for the preliminary plan and the forest conservation plan for Ruby Drive. This is a continuation of the conditional use that's now moving on to preliminary plan. We have the preliminary plan brought up front here in front of you. I think the major concerns from the preliminary plan point of view was there was a lot of details that need to be shown that weren't shown on the preliminary plans, measuring details. All these has been spelled out into your E-plans, but a lot of it just has to do with drawing the correct way, making sure everything's labeled and measured. There, you saw the other agency contents. I think the kind of the big issue here is just making sure everything's shown correctly on the plans. I open it up to the applicant for questions and thoughts.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Josh. And thank everyone for their comments. We appreciate it. And I think as is reflected in the comments we received, you know, a lot of the details on this project have been worked through at the time of conditional use. And like you said, there's a number of comments that are really kind of more technical cleanup comments, which we can address with our next submittal. So thanks for spelling those out. We also wanted just to clarify on the WSSC comments, just for everyone's benefit of knowledge, the WSSC HPA was actually approved after we submitted the preliminary plan. So all of those comments have also been worked through at this stage, which is good. There are a few we wanted to chat about while we have everyone on the call. I think the first, we'll probably have to just kind of look more internally and then circle back with staff, was regarding, there was a comment from both DOT and Park and Planning about the West Old Baltimore frontage and how that, and I guess the real comment is kind of conforming that with complete street standards. I know there was a lot of discussion about this, or some discussion with the conditional use regarding kind of the alignment of West Old Baltimore Road, which is actually off-center. So more of the pavement is towards our property. And then there's also some frontage constraints. So I wasn't sure if there were specific elements of the complete street guidelines that you all were looking for. That would be helpful for us to discuss today, or if not, it's something we can look at and evaluate further and then circle back.
This is Billy Whalen with DOT. I can go first. Yeah, we just want to see the cross section and make sure you can fit the ditch section in with the sidewalk within the right of way.
Great. That's helpful. Thank you.
This is Nick Peavy from Planning, Transportation Planning. Yeah, I second that comment, and we just, you know, if you need help with anything, let me know. I can answer any questions that you might have about, you know, what elements we are trying to focus on. But yeah, just reference the Complete Street Design Guide for this area connector typology, and you know, we'll see, you know, what we can fit in with the right of way. But yeah, happy to reach out to me, or if you have questions as you're building that.
Okay, that's great. I think so. The cross section, I think, will be helpful for kind of all of us to have that discussion off of, because the other piece here is obviously the applicant had voluntarily agreed to kind of make the sidewalk connections to east and west. So that also dictates kind of the alignment, so we can tie into those, which I know was one of the comments, to provide kind of a greater level of detail to show those tie-ins, which we'll do when we resubmit. Okay, well, that's helpful. The other comment, I think, was Nick's, regarding the internal sidewalks within the property and a desire to see those be at 6 feet wide. And I wanted to have that as something we can discuss and to provide a little context from the conditional use in terms of kind of a balancing act here, right? So we're proposing those to be 5 feet wide, which is sufficient to accommodate kind of the ADA, handicap accessibility, but then also being mindful of the fact that one of the key focuses of this project through the conditional use process was on minimizing impervious area given the special protection area. So we would like to keep those as 5 feet, kind of given that balancing act. We have the circulation, but we're also keeping that impervious as low as possible.
Okay, yeah.
But if there's
Okay,
So Nick, if that's something we should connect off online, we certainly can. The other clarification I was just gonna make too was on, there was a comment about kind of the material. So we're proposing those will all be concrete sidewalks, so there won't be kind of an ADA issue. If there was somewhere in particular you had seen where we were calling out brick, if you could send us a note, just so we make sure we clean that up with our next resubmittal, that would be helpful.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank
But we
you.
can look too.
And Liz, if you guys get together to discuss the 5 foot versus 6 foot in terms of the SPA and the impervious levels of this area, let's get together and include me on that, and we can have that discussion.
Sounds good.
Okay. The next was a comment on the data table, Josh. I saw you made a comment about the units per acre, and candidly, I mean, I agree with you. There's no units here, right? It's an assisted living facility, so we have just beds. We had shown the units per acre really through the conditional use process, from the compatibility perspective, that even if you treated these individual cottages as a unit, we were still in conformance with the zoning ordinance and the master plan. But I understand why that's getting confusing. So do you think it would be best if we just kind of remove that row from the data table?
Well, you can either remove it or add a third column of what the conditional use approved. And my bigger comment was, even if you did units per acre and counted each of the 8 units as a unit, it didn't equal units per acre because you showed in the data table, I think it was 8 units per acre, but the site's larger than 8. Yeah, larger than an acre. So nothing really matched. We just need to make sure it's clear and consistent.
Okay. I understand that better now. Okay, we'll look at that and circle back if we have questions.
So can we just remove that row, be done with that?
I think you need to address it in the data table because it is part of the preliminary plan that's looking at that, but you can definitely add a layer to it saying, conditional use, and do an asterisk, a footnote, and do that under the table saying that it's considered, 1 unit, or consider however we're going to look at it. But the data table does need to address it.
Okay. And we'll go back, Kevin, and look at how we reflect that on the conditional use to make sure it's all matching up.
Okay.
And I think our last one actually was just on, I think there was some confusion about the tree variance request, which we really submitted for kind of informational purposes with this, because that was approved by the board with the preliminary forest conservation plan. So Josh, I didn't know if it was better to not include it or if there was something you were looking for with that.
Take it out unless it's changed. We don't have a new variance request.
Yeah.
So then it does not get included in the submission.
Okay, so we will just kind of remove that so that it's not confusing, because we're not proposing any changes to what the board approved.
Correct.
Okay. That was it for us. The rest of the comments were really straightforward. So again, appreciate everyone's time reviewing this and providing those detailed comments so we can quickly address them and resubmit.
This is Paul Mortensen. Sorry, I haven't seen this latest version of this plan. I know we've been working on this for a long time. I'm assuming the idea is that this driveway coming in would be like a street and would be a very nice tree-lined street. Is that correct?
Kevin, do you want to answer that? I forget the exact details along the street in terms of landscaping, the internal drive.
At this point, I think we already had a landscape plan for the entire site. So for the lot area over there, we have some of this area that we need to use for the stormwater management. We'll do whatever we can for the planting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I mean, you're obviously making the street as well as that central sort of plaza thing, the public sort of, I put it in quotes, public, but the public space for this development. It sure would be nice if there could be a sidewalk on each side of the street with street trees.
Which the limitation we had over here, to put another sidewalk over here will be very challenging. And majorly because the traffic for this one is the shift for the walker. So they have certain, certain time of the shipping. But beside that, most of the time, they do not have any of the other vehicle or minimal vehicle coming in. And if you look at that, the sidewalk network, we're pushing the senior people around, more of them are off the street. So we provide as much of the sidewalk that we need. Currently, we did not put another set of sidewalk along the west side of the property, but on the back of them, we have sidewalk just because the purpose of the care facility is not, to have these people, pushing the senior or the requirement people around this facility in front of the house. More likely will be on the back of the house and also other sidewalks area that they can, all these people will be in a wheelchair and had a walker to put them around.
So Paul, I think it's like we can look at and provide some more details when we resubmit. I think our main focus had been on kind of providing connectivity kind of within the overall site, in terms of these walking paths for the seniors to utilize. And you're right, that kind of shared drive or the drive aisle in the center is really kind of in some ways envisioned as kind of like a shared street, given the limited amount of vehicular activity that's going to occur there. But I certainly hear your points, and we can look back at that when we look at the landscape plan in greater detail to be a little bit more clear on how that's being designed from an urban design perspective.
Yeah, I just think that street could be a really wonderful amenity within this development. So
yeah, we'll do we like that also. Just we want to do whatever landscape that we can have to make it look nice.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
No, Josh, do you have the date for our first resubmittal? If not, we can look it up. I assume if you had it handy.
I will make sure I get the schedule out to you today.
Sure.
I was just a little bit pressed this morning.
No worries. Then that's it for us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Hey, good afternoon. I am Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division. And this is DRC for Sam's Car Wash.
I have it up.
Josh Penn is the lead. And we're here just to discuss this one. So I will let Josh take the lead on that. It is, this is being live streamed and recorded. Go ahead, Josh.
Hello all, Josh Penn here. I'm your lead reviewer for Sam's Car Wash, packaging the conditional use in the forest conservation plan. We had a lot of preliminary discussions about this going back. I also sent out the combined comments on Monday morning. Sorry, it didn't go out Friday afternoon. I had a little bit of a glitch with my email. But you should have all received those. I think above and beyond all the specific comments that we can get into later on, I think the big issue that we're being faced with is the design issue and the transportation issue of going from what's currently a 2-access site to a 1-access point site. I believe both our internal transportation people and state highway and also the DOT have it all commented that this should be a 1-access point site for various reasons in the codes. I think that's probably going to be where you want to focus your conversation today. But Patrick, I'll leave it to you to kind of go into your questions and ask what you may.
Great, thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. And you are correct that that comment provided some consternation for us, as the whole design for this proposal is based upon the preservation of the existing building and circulation, the grade of Ridge Road, and safety issues for cars entering and exiting the site. So I don't know if this is the forum to have that discussion, because it's multi-layered, and but we're happy to engage in that if you want. We do know that the code does provide flexibility for circumstances that are warranted, and we certainly feel that our circumstances are warranted to maintain the current design that was proposed. We do have other questions. I'll pause there to see if there's a desire, but otherwise we look forward to working with SHA, DOT, and planning staff, and Marie LeBlanc as well, to get clarity on the right approach here.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a larger question that would dominate all your time here. If you have any specific questions about the sections of code, that kind of stuff, we can kind of address it there. I don't know if state highway or county or our transportation need to elaborate at all, but from my gathering of the comments is that the code states 1 on several different things in terms of that. So I don't know if anybody else wants to comment in at larger kind of briefly, or if we want to take that offline.
So I think that I can chime in specifically. So yeah, for section 59, 7.3 of the county code, it requires up to substantially compliance with master plans. And then when you go to the pedestrian master plan, one of the things that we always look is to avoid as many access points as we want in this point as we can. And this specific area, this is a town center street. And for town center street, we expect high volumes of pedestrians walking, and therefore we always try to avoid the conflicts that we can create between motor vehicles and pedestrians walking. In this case, we think that we can potentially consolidate this driveways into one, and therefore reduce those points of conflicts. But another thing is that, and that's something that probably I think that SHA is in this call, or it's in this call, SHA. But if SHA is in this call, maybe SHA can chime in a little bit more.
I don't think they're online right now.
Oh, Quasi is.
Yeah, I'm here. This is Quasi with.
And then I can turn it out to Quasi to talk about specifically about the access manual, a requirement for this type of use.
Yeah, and to be clear, just in response to that comment, then Chris, I definitely want to hear from you. That the conflicts with pedestrian vehicles, that is where our focus is, and we think that can be addressed with the conversations that we're looking forward to having.
Yeah, so I mean, this is crazy again. It's always better to have less access point. It is stated in our manual that with frontages like 400 feet or less, they should be limited to one. It does help with pedestrian safety and operations. So, but like you said, we could revisit this in more detail. I'll have my traffic folks trying to call, but the manual does state that anything 400 feet or less, it should be limited to
Right.
one access point.
Understood. And all the code sections, the master plans that have been cited are shoulds, not must be. And let's not lose sight of the fact of what the use is here. This is a car-centric use to serve Up County for a much needed car wash. It's no different than what currently is on site for the previous bank site. So the desire, we understand the desire, but the practicality of what's desired in this situation can be accommodated in other ways, we think. So that's why the conversation probably should continue outside of the room.
Okay, Patrick, yeah, I agree. We'll set up a separate meeting after this for just the issue, the primary issue of the access point. Do we want to move on to other, if you have any other questions other than ask access point questions?
Yeah, that's, it always makes me laugh when we do that because it's, you know, the Lincoln comment, the Mary Todd Lincoln comment. So,
Yeah, I understand.
But we do have some comments on, or questions, I should say, for clarifications. The comment 3 and 4 talk about bicycle and pedestrian requirements that could be accommodated through a fee and lieu process. And I think 4 deals with a cross section of Ridge Road that presumably would address the bicycle facilities. Just wondering how that process would work and what's the best way to get that started.
Yeah, so I can start. So the bicycle master plan for this, for the frontage of this development requires or requests a two-way separated bike lane facility along Ridge Road. We don't want this facility to be built. We would like a fee in lieu for this facility. And for this to be possible, you will need to show the bike facility along the frontage of their property so we can collect the fee. So you will need to show us a cross section.
Who's taking the fee?
I
Because it's a state road.
talked to, yeah, well,
So Quasi, are you gonna take that fee?
We don't have a way to accept fee in lieu.
So is there a CIP project up there?
I have to check. I don't know, but that would be the only way. Other than that, we don't have a mechanism to accept fee in lieu.
Okay, we need to talk about that offline.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of the key to the question, right? What the process and how we're the logistics of it. So, who should we follow up with? Was that Rebecca talking or Quasi, or do you all need to talk internally and then get back to us?
We'll
Yes,
talk internally
okay.
and Justine will reach out to you and CC me on the email.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Meanwhile, I think we can work forward on the suggestion of what the bike facility could be in the hopes that the fee in lieu is the outcome that we come to. The other question, and this is more of a clarification on 6.1, where it notes that there's no pedestrian crosswalks or sidewalks illustrated on the plan. I think what is being asked for is just a lead walk from Ridge Road. Is that it, or is there more to it?
Yeah, I just wanted to show, this is Justin again. I just wanted to show the clear connection between the existing sidewalk along Ridge Road and then to the proposed development. So I just want to make sure that you're making that.
Okay, that makes sense. That's what we were thinking, but that's the purpose of this meeting, to make sure we're all on the same page. And then lastly, from our standpoint, the last set of comments that are in bulleted form, they're on page 3. there is a second bullet that wants us to reconsider which 50% of the building should be saved. And we're curious as to what the purpose of that comment is. And the context we ask it is that we had heard from the county early on that they want the front to be, resemble the existing street view that would be seen along Ridge Road. And then, so to preserve that and then obfuscate as far as possible back, the more intense car wash operations, which is what our focus was in coming up with this plan design. So
I think the comment arose from our design section and our design meetings on that. And the question was, what do you need? Basically, the question was, what exactly needs to be retained to be considered an alteration repair permit versus the new structure? Because we understand that's where we need to be in terms of that. Otherwise, all of the building would have to be up to the CR zone and the build 2 line. So if that is the case, why are we splitting the building in the middle? Could we pull it up forward, bring more room to the back of the site to allow for more flow into the back of the site while maintaining a single access point? A lot of the design issues tie back into whether this is a single access point or not.
Okay, all right.
So address that after we get the main kind of 800-pound gorilla in the corner, which is the access point. But I do think we're going to need a full meeting to discuss that.
Okay. All right, well then that leads us back to our starting point, which is that meeting. And Josh, you'll work to set that up or next steps on that?
I will set that up probably the next day or two and get it out to you.
Okay. I think that's it. I have other members of the team here that may have some comments. So let me pause there to see if there are any comments, questions from the meeting or the comments that were distributed.
Hello, I'm Joe. I'm the owner of Sam's Car Wash along with my son, Sam and Matthew. I just want to thank you guys for your time. I know we had some talks early on and we're excited about moving forward with the project, and we look forward to sitting down with you guys and discussing these issues.
Okay. So I think that's it. We give found time as a good thing. So don't want to belabor that if there's no need to.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you much. Josh, look forward to hearing from you.
Great, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Afternoon. I'm Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Pike Center. This is a discussion item. The lead reviewer is Tamika Graham, and this meeting is being recorded and live streamed, and I'll turn it over to Tamika to lead the discussion.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I will start off with the schedule. I know we had some questions about that. I understand that your OZA hearing is January 27th of next year. So backtracking those dates, that will put your second submission to us this month on the 21st. A final submission no later than November the 12th. And we would have our planning board hearing January the 16th. So just getting into some of our comments, hopefully you had a chance to go through all of the comments. I know it was a lot, but first off, you know, you've met with our team before, so you've heard all of our comments and, you know, just appreciation for the vision for the site and redeveloping this. And generally, we do concur with your team's assessment that this is consistent with the sector plan and that there's, you know, a case to be made for this local map amendment. Just a couple of comments, though, about the findings for the LMA, because that's, you know, kind of the most important at this stage. A lot of the other questions or comments are, you know, tied to preliminary and site plan, but for the LMA with the findings, we really do need a little bit more about conformance with the general plan. I know that you had a couple of bullet points there, but in terms of giving us some more substantive discussion on that, I think that would be really important to making the case. You did a great job of talking about conformance with the sector plan. And then also, there are a couple of findings, one that talks more about adjacent properties and then one that talks more about the surrounding area and neighborhood. And that's another finding where some of the narrative could be a little bit more robust in making your argument about you know, how this site interacts with the character of adjacent neighborhoods, and specifically talking about some of the residential that's in the area that we know, you know, won't be redeveloping, similar to some of the confronting sites. I don't know if we have the city of Rockville on the line, but Rockville coordination should also be considered in this application. Yeah, as you stated, we don't have you don't have a requirement for height compatibility, but if you could talk a little bit about what's required from the Rockville side, and then also giving a little bit of insight on how the back of your site will interact with any redevelopment plans that the city of Rockville has. The next big thing is site access, circulation, and layout. I'm not going to touch on everyone. Obviously, a big part of that is the LATR study that's under review. I know that your team has had a number of meetings and correspondence on those issues. We still need to talk about intersection spacing and curb radii. One of the comments that we wanted you to consider is the curbless street section. Obviously, that would have to be away from the signalized intersection, but we think there's an opportunity to explore it along Private Street A. So that's something that we want to talk about. Open space, I think we can really get into this with the LMA. One, the calculations do need to be updated. We've also given you some recommendations for some of the documents that Montgomery Parks has to provide as you develop the concept for that. We're also concerned about how the stormwater management might encumber that site and make the half acre even smaller. Phasing, you all know we're always thinking about ways that we can maximize sites as they redevelop and how they can be used in the interim. We love to hear your ideas about you know, how the site can be maximized as it transitions. Public benefits, as you all know, we're going through that process now with updating our incentive density guidelines. And so when you come back in, you know, that conversation will probably look a little bit different, but it is still worth talking about what you've proposed at this stage in the application, and just addressing some of the other questions that we've had. And along with the LMA, you have your FCP. You can find all of those comments associated with the environmental guidelines and with the noise analysis in the next stage. You can find that stuff in e-plans. From there, I'll turn it over to, I guess I see Rebecca here, so we can turn it over to, oh, you're not commenting on this, okay.
Deepak.
Oh, is Deepak on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, great. Hi, good morning. If you could share some of your major points with the applicant.
So I had my comment, unless I get the TIS, I wouldn't be able to comment on the improvements within the right of way. So we need the TIS, revised TIS to provide any comments as far as the improvements within the right of way is concerned.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. If we don't have any other agency comments, we can the applicant team, yeah, we'd love to just have a little dialogue about some of those things. And if you have any follow-up questions for us.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Tamika, and thanks, everyone. And we did have a chance to go through the comments, and we met internally yesterday to review them, and kind of come up with, I guess, sort of like two lists to go through for our meeting today. So the first being sort of things that we want to just set follow up and drill down meetings on, that in the next, I guess, 13 minutes that this meeting is set for. Obviously, we don't have a chance to have enough time to go through it. So we agree with you, Tamika, and I guess Deepak too, that there's a number of sort of transportation, intersection spacing, curb AI, curbless comments that we do want to set a separate meeting with you on. I guess I would ask, so Deepak, it sounds like you did not get a copy of the TIS?
No, we did provide comments as
Heather?
part of the previous review, and I haven't seen a revised TIS after that.
Yeah, Heather, we provided comments back on September 12th, combined comments from us, MCDOT, and SHA.
Right. Okay, we got those. Oh, okay. All right. It just sounded like there was maybe a conflict there, so I figured I'd ask that question. So I guess someone at DOT got the TIS.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that there were issues with the motor vehicle analysis data, and so before we really can go much further with any sort of a review, those need to be resolved.
Okay.
Yeah, Heather, I included those comments. I think Richard also included those TIS comments as, along with the submission as well. We just reiterated those comments again. So we need to see that in order for us to comment on any improvements within the right of way. We need to see the revised TIS.
All right. I will. Mike Warkowski and Brant, are you on? That's our consultants.
I don't see them.
Huh, interesting. Okay. And I know I did forward them the invite from this morning. So, okay. Well, one way or another, I think we sort of internally agreed that we need to have a separate conversation. And I guess sort of internally to go over those comments, but we'd also like a follow-up meeting with you all as well. So I guess in terms of setting that follow-up meeting, Tamika, would you be the one I should coordinate with in terms of getting all of the requisite agencies on board for that?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'll just send you a separate email after this meeting to coordinate on that.
Do you want the follow-up meeting next Tuesday? Which is the day we reserve for work sessions?
Yep, right. I know that you do that. I should be pretty available. What does our team's availability look like next Tuesday to follow up on that? Give a shout if that, and what time, is that usually in the morning?
Typically, we already have a few scheduled, so we will have to send something out to you to schedule it.
Okay. All right.
but anybody on our team having, and obviously we'll need to check with Mike and Brandt, but why don't we go ahead and just assume Tuesday? And if you could, I guess, send me an email and I can coordinate on our team side to make sure that we can make the time work.
All right, Tamika, I'll
Agreed.
have Emily coordinate with you. Thank you.
Heather, I don't know how productive that would be for next week unless we see the TIS. I don't know what I can provide because I really need to see the TIS to give you anything.
Okay, and you're saying the updated TIS, so the
The
TIS
updated
updated.
TIS, yeah, the revised
Okay.
TIS with
All
our
right,
comments being addressed. So I don't know how productive that meeting would be next week. I mean, as of now, I cannot give you anything.
Okay, understood. We are meeting, so at 1 p.m., so basically immediately following this DRC meeting, our team is meeting. And Ian, I assume you have Mike and Brandt on that. It looks like you do. So why don't we talk? We will talk with them, our team, at 1 p.m. today. So like literally in 15 minutes, and confirm what we can get you before next Tuesday. And so then maybe what I'll do, Tamika, is I'll email you and Deepak and sort of just let you know when we can get you the updated information, and whether we think next Tuesday makes sense or if we should look at something else. Does that sound good?
Okay, yes, it does.
Okay, and then I'll copy you, Deepak, just so you're aware too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, all right, so let me just, and then I also just wanted to note in terms of just sort of follow-up things, and Tamika, I think you said this, that the findings is most relevant to the LMA. A lot of the other comments relate to preliminary plan and site plan. So I think one of the things that we wanted to do, because we really do appreciate the pretty detailed comments for us to take into account as we get towards, subsequent development applications. And given that our final resubmission is due November 12th, and then the planning board hearing isn't until the 16th, so just over 2 months later, I think what we wanted to do sort of, and obviously we do run into some holidays during that period, but it also is still over 2 months. So we wanted to make a reach out to you. And I think, for example, like the urban design comments came from Natasha, and maybe set a meeting with you in that sort of intervening 2 months to start going over those so that we can start to factor them in and take them into account and sort of be ready as we get to subsequent applications. So we're also hoping to meet with you at some point in those sort of 2-month gap period there to go over those types of comments.
Sure, yes, we can set that up.
Okay. All right. And there were a few things for just sort of, we thought, obviously, again, we don't have time to talk a lot of substance right now, but just in terms of sort of hopefully quick clarifications. So I'm looking at the PDF of the comments. And so I'm looking at page 3, and it's comment number 7 on sustainability. And we wanted to just we looked into that a little bit. We wanted to just understand sort of your comment on that. And I believe that is not a binding code requirement yet. It's sort of just ideal goals, but we wanted to just sort of understand the status of that and what your thoughts were on the sustainability comment.
Yeah, Heather, that comment is coming from us. That's kind of like general comment I always put on the urban design to kind of like get to know what the applicant is trying to do as far as sustainability is. It's not the requirement, but we would like to see what type of sustainability elements have been used throughout the design.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Natasha.
Sure.
Okay. All right, and then a few other clarification type things. There were comments about undergrounding utilities, and we had a question in particular relating to, obviously, we are fronting on the Pike here, and we do not believe that other projects have had to underground utilities along Rockville Pike, just because obviously sort of this sector plan and Rockville's to the north assume that at some point, the Pike will be pretty completely redone. So I believe we were looking at Pike and Rose, and they did not have to underground on Rockville Pike, but we just wanted to sort of understand your thoughts, particularly with respect to the Rockville Pike frontage.
Yeah, the comments related to undergrounding is for other streets and not the Rockville Pike. I know that's a major CIP project coming up, so
okay,
excluding.
Right.
I don't know if there are utilities along other public street that you have or not on the north and east.
Yeah, we're taking a look at it. Yeah. But okay, that sounds good. Well, that was our main question, was just, does this relate to the Pike? Because we obviously had some concerns there, because my understanding that could be like several millions of dollars. So we appreciate that clarification. Let's see. So another question, and I think this is on page 5 of the PDF, with regard to public open space. And I know there's some comments related to sort of, design, and then the curbless, I guess curbless curb, that's not a way of putting it, but you know what I'm trying to say. Then there is a comment related to the calculation for public open space. And it says, yeah, this is on page 5. Sidewalks should not be included in the public open space calculation. Please revise the data table showing the square footage of appropriate open spaces. So we had a question on that, because we all believe that sidewalks, to the extent they're in public right of way, are not public open space. But if there are sidewalks that are not within public right of way and they're on private property, they would typically be counted in public open space. So I think we had some questions about what that comment was saying. And Team Vika, anybody please jump in if I kind of butchered
essentially, this is Ian at Vika. Essentially, I don't know that we've had a problem counting that in the past. And I think, as many of the planners probably know, my approach typically is to show everything that is included and not necessarily quantify it in a number. So we have on the plan, I don't know if you have access to pull that plan up, the open space plan, but we've shown 2 different colors, green and a pinkish purplish color, that indicate the 2. The number together comes to, I think if you look at the table, it's like close to 18% or maybe greater. The orange is the cafe seating that would be outside of that figure. So we know there, for instance, are little skinny slivers along Boo and the like that don't necessarily count because they're not quote unquote meaningful areas or spaces, but they are something that we just indicate. The number is at this stage so conceptual that we don't want to nail it down. So I always have some saved in an account for rainy day, because the building pushes and pulls, utilities come, driveways change. So it's not to the nth place. But we typically don't have an issue counting the public sidewalk in that number if it's on site and it's private.
Yeah, Ian, I think you and we probably went through this with the prior LMA that we worked on together, and we probably had the same conversation. Sidewalks are typically not included. I don't think that we've ever considered public or private. I would prefer it not to be shown as part of it within the calculation, and maybe that's what you're pointing out here. But I saw on the table here that you have the 51,000. So to me, that suggested that you have included all those other areas that are shaded and different.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but the 51,000 is probably lower than what that picture shows. I think for our purposes, because we're at concept, we're probably going to go back down to like 27,500. Or maybe something greater than that, but it will include the half-acre park, which will be the purple/pink, and it will include whatever's green. But that number is probably reporting way less than actually shows in the image. So, but in either case, I'll truncate it down to as low as possible so that we have flexibility moving forward, and we understand your position.
Yeah, I thank you for explaining your approach to this, but I think it's misleading to include the sidewalks. So there's, within the zoning ordinance, there's some language about walkways through the open spaces, but I don't think this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about, the sidewalks within the right of way.
Okay.
And I just think for clarity purposes, I think we just need to clearly show that you're not counting the open space, excuse me, the sidewalks as part of the public open space.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. And I think I had just 2, and I know we're reaching 12:55 right now. I think that was all. I think that was sort of the list of future meetings, which really are 2. One more imminently about traffic and transportation, and one in a few months on sort of urban design and design type comments. And then I think in terms of the quick clarification items, we've covered them all. I did have two other questions on schedule. Tamika, you said our next resubmission is due October 21st, and then final resubmission is due November 12th. Is there an intervening date that we would expect second round of agency comments?
Yeah, so that schedule is based on the 10-day cycle. So
Okay.
you would get comments back from us.
And a little clarity on that, that I'm seeking. I know right now it's not in E-plans. Is that something that we are headed towards, or are we still just emailing links to files that are updated?
For these types of applications, they, actually, this one, is this an LMA?
Yeah.
LMAs are now starting to go into E-plans. So for the future applications, yes, but since this one has already gone through the process, it's not an E-plans.
Okay. So then we'll do the same process. We'll email a link to the updated material.
Before we go, could we circle back? Is anyone from the city of Rockville on the line? I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak if you are on the line.
Faramars did put a comment in about ramps at Rollins and opposite Street A.
Good afternoon, I'm Farmers Mokhtori. We coordinate with traffic as part of the traffic review with county and your park and planning staff on this. But additional comment I had, thank you for bringing, I just put it in the chat. Rollins Avenue is a city maintained roadway, and it's directly opposite of Street A. And we noticed that basically that would be a pedestrian path on both sides of Chapman. So we think provision of ADA ramps for the approaches, especially on Roland, which doesn't have a good ADA ramp, would be a good thing to add to this application. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Tamika and Deepak, I'll get you an email after our team meets shortly to schedule this follow-up meeting.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
I am Christina Sorrento, Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Garrett Park. Your lead reviewer is Erin Fowler. And the purpose of this meeting is to ask any or answer any questions that you may have based upon the comments that you received. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. I will turn it over to Erin just to highlight any major items we should discuss and then turn it over to the applicant. Go on, Erin.
Thanks, Christina. Good afternoon, everyone. So we're looking at this project for a 2-lot subdivision in Garrett Park. It's located at 10701 Keswick Street in the R90 zone, and it's in a historic district. So just a few pieces to highlight for the applicant team before I turn it over to you to ask any questions. So in order to stay on schedule for the 90-day timeline, we'll need a final submittal from you all by October 28th. And this is currently an administrative level plan, meaning it could be signed by the planning director, but if we hear anything from the community as we progress, then it will need to go to the planning board, in which case I know we're targeting a December 12th planning board hearing date if needed. And I think the biggest pieces to flag on the plan are ensuring that fire access is figured out, and then just noting the additional regulatory review pieces because it's a historic site. So this will need to go to the Historic Preservation Commission and will require a historic area work permit. I know we have Dan from our historic preservation team here who can speak to that a little bit more, but I think those are the big pieces. So with that, I can turn it over to the applicant.
Good morning. Is my speaker working this time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, well, there's two. We will work on the historic permit, obviously. If I can pick up the simpler one is in regards to the forest conservation. I just have a couple questions regarding the forest conservation, and then I'll move on to the fire access. In the comments, it said, because it's historic, all trees all trees 1 inches and larger will have to be identified on the whole site, or just the ones that are disturbed, or what's the definition of that?
I believe it's the whole site.
So the whole site, 1 inches and larger, have to be identified.
No, what you need is a variance request for any impacts to trees 1 inches and greater.
Okay. All right. So if we're not impacting, let's just say we're not impacting any trees 1 inches and larger, we wouldn't need a variance. But if we are, then we would have to identify them and put them in a variance.
That is correct.
Okay, we've already submitted for a variance, so that would require expanding the variance. 1 inch trees don't have much of a critical root zone, so if there was impacts or removal of 1 inch trees or larger, they would have to be shown, identified, and classified as impacted or removed and put in the variance.
Yes, and they must be mitigated for. Removals must be mitigated for.
I understand. All right, and then the next thing is you're saying that the category 2 easement doesn't protect forest, and it's too small, and the whole site would have to be counted as cleared even though we're not clearing it. I'm trying to figure out the options, what I have. If it was category 1, would that would that be appropriate to put on a lot? That's yes or no, or?
It wouldn't be because of the size of it, and the fact that it's on a lot means that it's kind of rife for having violations happen down the line. And the lot itself is a little too small and the forest is too small.
It's a little over 1/2 an acre of forest, and it's a little over an acre is the lot size. So I'm just trying to figure out the options other than, paying a 0.96 acre mitigation fee, because that's what I calculate as, if the entire forest was counted as clear.
Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of other options. A category 2 for conservation easement doesn't protect forest, right? It explicitly allows for the clearing of understory. And the planning board has not been interested in category 1 conservations or any conservation easement on properties under 2 acres in size, because it doesn't leave the homeowner with a usable yard size, and the homeowner wants to go, do with their yard whatever they want to do, whether it's putting in a deck, a pool, or just clearing an area and making it grass. That we find that it sets the homeowner up for violations, and we can't enforce this, and it's just not good practice.
Okay, I'm just trying to pursue all the options possible to be able to explain it to the owner. So the only option possible is, even though we're going to be saving a significant amount of the forested trees in the forest, we can't count it towards forest conservation, and a fee in lieu would have to be approved and compensated for financially.
Yes, or credits into a forest conservation bank, which is the
Okay.
preferred option.
I understand. So, the ideal way is to find a bank within the watershed and recorded, secure an easement, for the 0.96 acres in that bank, as they're off of the Planning Commission website of available banks in the area. Okay, I'll discuss that with the owner. And the bigger issue, I guess, is the fire department access. And I don't know how, this plays into the fact that in 1946, this was originally lots 11 and 12, and they were, two half-acre lots basically. And it was combined into one in 1978. This road, I guess, was never meant to be, it was never designed to any standards, because it was in Garrett Park, and it's a 50-foot right of way, and the bulb at the end of the street is a 30-foot diameter bulb. So it doesn't meet any criteria for fire department access. That bulb would have to be expanded to a 45-foot radius and encroach, onto the lot, near to the existing historic house, and that, grading wise, and my, opinion, would change the character of the historic designation if that full cul-de-sac bulb was put in. Right now, Oxford Street, Oxford Street is the cross street at the top of the page. It's off the drawing, but it's at the top of the page. And there is a fire hydrant right there at the intersection. So, if, in fire department access terms, if you come 150 feet, with a height restricted building, if you come 150 feet down the road, for the end of the fire department access, the travel path from the end of the fire department access to the front door of the proposed dwelling is 178 feet. Marie will say that the minimum is 150 feet, and I'm not sure how to thread this needle as far as fire department access, because it would require a cul-de-sac bulb and impact the historic character of the property. And I don't know how yeah.
Rebecca, so Marie is not here. She's deployed. I will read her comments. She said there's no waiver for life safety code. Submit a performance-based design alternative that meets or beats the intent of the code. So my thought is that we do 60-foot wings, something along those lines. You don't have to do a cul-de-sac. So, and I think, so you'd have to confirm with her of what she would specifically require, but I think that you could use the driveway potentially as one of your wings. I think I've seen that. Does anybody else want to say anything, or we want to? No? Okay. So
I've done that before, but
so you have to, she says there's no waiver of life safety code, so you have to provide some kind of turnaround for her. She said submit previous record plat and clearly identify alterations since dimension the dead end and proposed walking path to front door or existing or proposed units. Indicate previous record of plat BRLs. If performance-based design alternative is insufficient, locate turnaround at lake on site. Existing hydrant at the end of Keswick is not compliant with for new development due to long dead end. Locate hydrant within 400 feet of the end of truck travel, measuring at the truck travels, and label all relevant payment with and turning radii. So my point is, Marie had some comments. I think that she put them, I would assume she put them in e-plans. She is not here today. You can send her an email. I think she will respond if she can. But you need to work with her on getting that.
That she was deployed, as in like.
She is deployed, yes, but I think she will be checking emails, but I don't know. Like probably next week, I would say, contact her.
I sent her an email on something else last Friday and she replied right away. She's like in the reserves or something. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't know exactly. She's an engineer and she goes down and she helps out these areas. So she's
okay.
Florida, I think.
I understand. But I have put a leg on a driveway, but with Marie before a while ago. But what that requires is an easement required over the driveway, and there'd be no parking allowed in the driveway.
So you got to talk to her. I have
Okay.
nothing. I'm just repeating what she says.
I know, and it's, that's the problem with this. And would maybe the question I need to ask, as far as your opinion goes, would the fact that it was originally 2 lots have any bearing on this?
No.
Or I know it's a Marie question, but.
No, not I'm not a fire department person, but no. Unless it's platted.
Okay. All right, well, everything else seems to be pretty straightforward, and I got the forest conservation answered, and I guess we'll work on the historic preservation approval and work permit. Assuming we don't have to like build a cul-de-sac, it shouldn't, nothing should really affect the historic character of the house. And somehow I have to make Marie happy, if that's possible.
All right, any other questions?
Hey, Dean, it's Mark Etheridge, DPS Water Resources.
Yeah.
I know you've got an application in for a concept, but it hasn't actually gotten to me yet. It still says you've got the task. So I've got nothing under review currently. So look into that and see if you can get that cleared up. Joe Kozlowski is the permit tech if you need help from him. but I think it just, you probably just need to process that task and get it in here so I can assign it.
Okay, well, it should, that, your review should be a fairly simple review, but yes, I'll take care of that today.
Okay, yeah, just let you know. See you.
All right, anything else?
Unless somebody has a bright idea how to make Marie happy, I'm done.
Okay, yeah, I think you'll have to talk to her, Dean. All right, thank you.
Okay.